Welcome to Book Club. My name is Tova Privet, Emerald Ambassador. We are doing Atomic Habits, which has been one of my absolute favorites. I love this book, been through it more than once. So it's definitely one of those ones that is worth going through more than once. All right, so we're doing chapters 13 and 14. I'm going to try to kind of give a brief overview and then we'll get into chatting about all the fun details. So chapter 13, how to stop procrastinating. Like, who can't use some more of that? I don't consider myself a procrastinator, but I think we all have like areas and go through phases for sure. So I think this, I felt like was applicable to everybody. All right. So this is kind of how I interpreted it, because obviously y'all read it for yourself, but it's all about cues and rituals to increase your probability of success. And I feel like we don't give cues and rituals, and I use those terms kind of interchangeably, enough weight. And right before I signed on, I thought of this. I was like, why didn't I think of this sooner? So most of us are moms. So I'm going to start with this. Think about when you finally got your newborns, well, I guess not a newborn, maybe 3 or 4 months old, sleep routine down. And you were like, I'm not changing anything. So you fed your kid at a certain time, you bathed them at a certain time. I used to use this exact same like lavender soap and lavender lotion and like bang, 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 bang. And what you were doing is you were cueing your baby's neural pathways to like, hey, guess what, Joker? Like, you're going to do these cues and then you're going to go to sleep. And their brains learned it. And you don't want to change anything. You keep repeating it and it ingrains it. In essence, we're going to leverage that exact same science for ourselves, for our businesses. And some habits, you got on lockdown. You don't really need to change anything. If it's working, leave it alone. All the stuff we're talking about, I feel like, is for things that you're struggling with or that you want to make a little bit stronger. So 2 quotes that I feel like were an overriding theme that stuck with me about what he said. The first one was, you cannot improve a habit that you don't have. And this seems super obvious, but I think a lot of times we get in our heads about like, man, I wish would do more of that. I wish I would do this. I wish I would do that. And in fact, something you do occasionally when you're inspired to do so is not a habit. Okay. So you're getting frustrated and holding yourself back and having this head trash over a habit that you haven't established yet. So first of all, like, cut yourself some slack and do the work of the habit first. And then you can stress about improving the existing habit. But we're not laying a good foundation if we don't do that first. So the first one is, cannot improve a habit that you don't have. Number 2 is, you standardize before you optimize. So this was like one of my favorite quotes of this whole book. So it's saying the exact same thing. So the baby analogy was one thing. I feel like this is another analogy that made sense to me. Think of like, it doesn't even have to be complicated, but when our kids build the domino sets, like, I don't care how simple it is or how complicated it is, ain't nothing happening until you hit that first domino. Okay. Like, you got to get the momentum going. And if you like start in the middle, then all the pieces aren't going to fall down. And I kind of feel like that with a really good cue, really good ritual, it's going to start all the pieces falling in the direction that it should. It goes easy because there's energy behind it. Kind of everything knows what it's supposed to be doing. That's what this should feel like. Okay. And at the very beginning, it might not, but he's trying to help us establish that. And that's where this 2-minute rule comes in. So some tangible examples of cue versus habit. Step 1 is, you need to separate cue and habit in your head. If you like the word ritual better, use that. I like cue for some reason, like go. And so he talks about, working out. The cue can be putting on your running shoes. The habit is you're out running or you're at the gym. All right. So it's not, oh, I just need to get to the gym and establish a good habit. No, you need to establish a good cue so your body knows, hey, this is exactly what I'm supposed to do next. If that's, and it can be lots of things, and you got to experiment with what your best cue is. If it's maybe you have a different alarm on the days that you go to the gym, so you have an audio cue. I was telling Natalie the other day, like, when I do my meditation, I'm lighting a specific like coconut candle. I just randomly had coconut, so I chose that. But like, I want my brain to associate, okay, when I smell this smell, like this is calm down, chill meditation time. So it's the same thing that we need to use for our business. And it does not work well when you try to skip one of the steps or go in verse. You have to do it the same way every time. And we discredit and don't give enough clout to these tiny steps, and these tiny rituals actually do make a huge difference. Think of the Olympic athletes and you see them prepping, or the NBA guys, like they do the exact same thing. If they spin the ball so many times, or if they bounce it so many times before a free throw, it's the same thing. It's the neural pathways. So remember, Natalie went over the third law of habits, where it's making it easy, decreasing the friction. So the 2-minute rules, the last little kind of topping that rule off for making it easy. So if you're going to start, first, you got to be honest with yourself and recognize, like, hey, I do not have good habits in these areas. And you're not going to have good habits in all your areas. Like, that's okay. So just identify the ones you're struggling with. And if you're not sure, talk it out with your upline. I'm sure you can figure it out with them. And like, no shame, just recognize that you need to work on it. And it says we start too big, that's kind of our biggest pitfall. We go into, let's use IPA for a tangible example. If you're struggling with doing your IPA, a lot of times you can feel like, especially I feel like the longer you get into this, you're like, no, I'm not doing 3, 2, 1. I'm sending out like 20 cold messages today and like 40 follow-ups, and that's fine on the days you can do it. But then sometimes we'll get stuck, at least I will, I'll be honest, that, well, if I can't do all that, I'm not doing any of it, like, because I don't want to like do a crappy job at it. Guess what? Like 2 reach outs is a lot better than 0 reach outs. But I had all these intentions of doing 20, and then my day blew up in my face. So point is, like, if that's something I'm struggling with, I need to start smaller and make it separate, to be honest, separate habits. And if I want to go in and repeat my IPA again and again and again, that's how you should approach it, as opposed to making this grandiose goal that has a much higher probability of getting something, a roadblock in the way. So small actions to cue your brain, make it easy as possible. And what this is doing is it's building your self-confidence. So if you want to be someone whose fitness is important in your life, you get up, you put your clothes on, and you head to the gym. Okay, notice we didn't say anything about what you're doing at the gym. Like nothing. Now, if later you want to make a goal about, like, I'm somebody who weight training is really important, or I'm somebody who's running is really important, then we'll set a new 2-minute one for that. But initially, we can't do any of those things if you don't get to the gym. And to be somebody who prioritizes things, it would be somebody who gets up and puts their shoes on and heads that way. So make it really simple. And he says, like, don't even, exactly, master the art of showing up. And I challenge you to really evaluate how you define showing up, because this has been a weakness of mine. And I will over define like what it means to show up. And so like 2 minutes, 5 minutes, that's not really showing up. That's not true. That's actually building really good habits and consistently showing up. And this business does not work. And I've been doing this for 4 years, long enough to watch the successful people. And I tell you, the people who show up and do 50 cold reach outs, and 14 days later do 50 cold reach outs, and 14 days later, they're not here. Okay. They're not. So this is not volume. This is consistency, and consistency over time compounds. We know that. But it's the same way for saving for retirement. You guys, this, you've seen all the charts. It doesn't work that way to suddenly put 10,000 in and wait a few years and put 10,000 in. It doesn't work that way. It's the people that put $50 in all the time. It's the little ads. Exactly. Consistency. And look for businesses, how they do this for you. Okay. So think of the decrease in friction businesses have tried to do for us. Netflix is a great example, where literally it will keep going if you do nothing. So you actually have to put forth effort to stop Netflix. It just keeps going. Auto billing is another good and bad thing. That's easy. We don't have to think about it. It's a good thing if that's obviously something that you need to be doing. Stores with how we pay. We don't even have to pull credit cards out of our wallet anymore. Like, that's too difficult. So those are extreme examples of reducing friction. So look in your business, look in your IPA, look in your daily tasks. Where can I decrease friction? And think back to the very beginning of this book where he talked about the cycle team, where they made those that's this book, right? I'm not thinking of another book, where they make the tiny changes and they add up. So I've said it already, don't discount the steps. One thing about going overboard, a lot of us are overachievers, and setting that showing up definition is too high. He says your 2-minute thing should be below the feeling of chore, work, or hassle. A lot of us pride ourselves on doing hard things, which is great. And it's a good personality trait. But when you're starting a new habit, I think you got to be careful, because you can set yourself up for failure, because we are really hard workers. We are really high achievers. So we just start too high. It doesn't mean you won't get there. But how you get there is important. And there was one other thing that I wanted to say. So this, I don't even know if this was in this book, but I thought of it and wrote it down. And it says, goals don't equal habits. Just like we said, the cue and the habit are two different things. Goals and habits are two different things. Your goals, your destination, your habits are the road to get there. All right. So you can think about going to Los Angeles all you want if you live in Virginia, but if you don't get in the car and start driving, like, I don't care, you're not going to manifest yourself in Los Angeles. You have to take steps to get there, whether that's walking or getting in the car or doing something for forward movement. So how are you going to cue yourself for that? And then he talked about phasing it in. I really like this. This is going to look different for everybody, but I wanted to give kind of two examples, a business one and a non-business one. So we alluded already to the running one. So phase one would be putting on running shoes. Maybe you don't even leave your house. You just put on your running shoes in the morning and then go about the rest of your normal routine. Then you would add in, maybe I'm going to go outside if your mailbox is not at your house. If it's a few minutes away, walk to my mailbox and back. And that's it. Then I'm going to go about my routine, and you'll have to pick how long you want to do that for. And I think that probably depends on how much you're struggling with the habit. I would, it's like people with plexus with sensitive stomachs, we onboard them slower. Same thing with this. If it's a big challenge area, I would do these phases for longer periods of time, and then increase your walking, and then eventually go to jogging. So lots of different phases with little baby steps, where when you add on the next step, it does not feel like this big chore. That's a red flag. If you've added and it's starting to feel like a chore, you probably moved too quick or stepped up too fast. So what would this look like with IPA? Somebody's really struggling, hasn't really been doing IPA at all, in a tough season. Just going into your office and maybe printing out your IPA sheet and maybe straightening your office. Like, you got into your office, you're cueing your brain that this is my work area, this is my work environment, and I went and got my IPA sheet. And maybe that's all you do for a few days. Again, we're trying to make progress. We would like you to do more than that. But if you're not doing anything, this is good that you're cueing your brain. Hey, this is the spot I'm supposed to work. This is the time. Really, if you can get a consistent time, think of the baby going to sleep at night. It, like, that really cues your brain. And I know it's hard, especially with summer and stuff, but once our kids are getting back into school, I highly encourage you to try to find a consistent time. And earlier in the day is better. Like, your dopamine's higher, you're more likely to do things well. Like, there's thousands of research that say that the longer you wait to do things, the more likely it is you're not going to do them. So adding on steps after you go into your office, you've printed your IPA sheets. Now, instead, if you can't hold up a power hour, talk to your sponsor and say, let's do a power at 15. Like, do a power 5-10 minutes. The point is, you're signing on, you have accountability to someone else. And then you would add on, okay, after I do print out my IPA sheet, do 5-10 minutes of a power hour, somebody I'm going to send out a cold message. So you see, you can make it really micro steps, and don't discount them. Something is better than nothing. And if what you're doing isn't producing results, then you need to do something else. And that's okay. So you're casting votes for your new identity. I think that was in here, and I heard it on another book club, and I really like that. And when you vote for somebody, you're showing confidence in them and belief in them. So by showing up for yourself, even in tiny ways, you are subconsciously casting votes for yourself and building belief in yourself. So really go through the motions. And we tell people this with the products, like, come on, give us 8 weeks, give us 12 weeks before you make any decisions. Do these steps, even if you don't think they're going to work, for 8-12 weeks, make a plan, write it down, talk to your sponsor, actually make a plan and follow it, and then see. Chapter 14, just a few minutes on this. 13 was most of kind of what I wanted to chat about, but he talked about commitment devices, making bad habits hard. So this is turning the third law on its head, upside down. And this one's a little harder to apply to us, but I would say the takeaway is preventing temptation. And you really need to analyze where are my weak spots? What spots get me? Is it scrolling on Facebook? Is it getting sucked into a TV show? Is it getting really easily distracted? So things you can do, it gave the example of like paying for a massage ahead of time. Like, you've paid for it. If it's inconvenient, you're probably going to find a way to go still. So it's like holding yourself accountable. Power hours do that. And if you can't do an hour, do 15-20 minutes. I promise there's other people that will do 15 or 20 minutes with you, and no one's going to be like, you didn't come to the full power hour. No one's going to be that way. So start small for yourself. For leaders, I felt like a good example of this would be to set up a Sign Up Genius for coaching calls, because when you set up a Sign Up Genius and it's like office hours for a TA in college. Like, I'm going to be here like Tuesdays and Thursdays from 10 to 12. Like, if no one shows up, I'll be doing my work, my IPA, but you guys have slots where you can sign up. And that's one less thing for us to think about and one less thing for us to plan and coordinate. So that could kind of, make it easier on you. And then the habit automation, he talked about the cash register, and the takeaway from the cash register is he said it was too hard to change their motivation. So he made it almost impossible to cheat, almost impossible to steal. He made zero attempt to change their motivation. So I think that's important to think about how to set yourself up for success for making the wrong decisions too difficult. All right. And you might have to get creative with this one. So identify your hard areas and talk with your sponsor about it. And the last one was about making one choice or one action that has repeated return on investments. So if somebody bought a big, like even not paper plates, if they bought glass, smaller plates, that's a one-time thing. You can only fit so much food on that plate as opposed to a huge plate. And that's going to support smaller portion eating. The auto savings things, no TV in your bedroom. And so I thought about how we could apply this, muting notifications, if not all day, I think especially during your power hour. And I think you need to be intentional with, if that's a problem point for you, if you're constantly having your attention split, you need to have a time where you go and look at messages and a time where you go and do this. So that would be something that you could set up where you don't have to make a choice to mute it, that you're going to mute it from this hour to this hour. And things in your brain should be automated, like coming to Monday and Thursday calls. Like, there's no decision to be made there. Your family knows, and so that is all the goodness. I think we hit on all the big points I wanted to, but I want to give people time to, Kylie, start signing your phone. I've definitely had to do that a little bit. All right, so here's a question. I have a few of them. So number one is, give some examples of plexus or not, either way, where you've established a cue for an existing habit, where you feel like you've done this in your life and you've seen the fruits of your labor, where a cue has worked for you. Some of these are hard. About like working out or anything. Anybody have any workout rituals? Bedtime ritual?
I don't know if it's necessarily
ritual.
and I know we talked about this in previous weeks, but like if I get the baby a bath, next comes bedtime. And then after bedtime, then I go pump. And after I pump, then I take a shower. And I like every single part of my life seems to be like, after I do this, then I know I got to do this. And then I got to do this. And it's kind of frustrating, but anytime something gets out of whack or out of order, then it seems like the whole schedule just like blows up and I have to get back on track, which usually happens around a mealtime. But I'm super efficient, really effective, and can get a lot done as long as I am self-disciplined enough to stay on track with that. So I'm not exactly having like eucalyptus or coconut smells going or anything like that, but I just know like I have to pump as soon as baby goes to bed. Otherwise, it's 10 o'clock at night and I'm sitting there frustrated, depressed, and stressed out that I did not do what I was supposed to do. And it just sets up a ripple effect just because I did not stick with being disciplined.
Love that. And I think the younger your kids are, at least we tell ourselves, the younger your kids are, the more important that is. That's probably a lie I tell myself, and I need to go back to being more like that. Even with my older kids, I'm like, oh, we're flexible. But then, like you said, the cues get all messed up, and before you know it, you're like, I've not done what I needed to do.
Or even like business wise, like I get in the car, I call a level one and I'll go through. If she didn't answer, then I'll call the next one and then the next one. Or as soon as kids are in bed, I'm not doing laundry, I'm not doing dishes. I am sitting at the computer. I sit, I open the computer as soon as they're in bed. And sometimes that meant sitting outside of their bedroom door to make sure the little butt stayed in bed. But either way, I was working as soon as I got them to bed. Otherwise, I wouldn't be getting my work done. So it goes in business too.
That's a good cue. If you get in the car, it's like coaching call time.
I'll share mine because it's more recent and it's with Plexus. So my cue that I've created was when I wake up, I sit and I enjoy my pink drink. Like it's the first thing I do. And that cue literally like propels my morning because I used to sit and just put on the TV and sit there with my kids and be like, where did our time go? Now we're all hungry. Now we're all flustered. And I'm trying to play catch up because I was sitting there scrolling my phone while they were watching cartoons. And it's like, I sit, I enjoy my pink drink. And when I'm done, it cues me like, now this is my active drink, like to get me going for my day. So I get up, I make the kids their breakfast, I get everything like in motion. Like it really helps to just start my day and push me where I need to go. So making better use of my morning.
That's awesome. I love that.
I have to say, when I get up, my office is on my third floor. So it's either extremely hot or extremely cold up there. So before I even go downstairs, I go upstairs and turn on my mini split. So it's either I turn on the air or I turn on the heat and then I go downstairs. So it's at a good temperature when I need to go back up. But I can give or take like an hour in between there to get everything that I need to do. But I know once I get into my office, that is just workspace. Like I have my TV to do my YouTube videos, I have my computer, I have my printer, I have everything in that hub that I have to get to, but it has to be at like a decent temperature because you can't work or concentrate if it's too hot or too cold. So that's what I do first. And then it's in my head, if I don't go back up there, I'm just wasting energy on that third floor. Like get your butt up there and put yourself to use. So that's something I've been utilizing every single morning and doing that first.
That's good. That's chapter 13 and 14 in use right there. I love
One
that.
thing that I have done business wise is when I do my makeup, I do not start my makeup until I find a YouTube video to watch. And, you know, I think about a couple chapters back, how you said, you know, you have to pick something to stack on top of. that you're going to do the same amount of days. And what I found though is, because not every day do I get ready with makeup, but you know, I try to do a video every day, but my personal growth could be reading or something else. So I try to do at least 5 days a week that I'm doing my makeup. Usually I'm putting myself together. And so it's like, I've kind of cued that when I go in the bathroom, I'm going to do my makeup. I'm like, okay, video. And so like today I went, I was going through my YouTube and I was like, oh yeah, there's this video I need to watch. And so that's something I've definitely, I guess my makeup would be my cue to watch whatever video or training that I need to.
Yes, I like that. It's like cue and habit stacking all in one.
Yeah. And well, with little kids too, I mean, reading I have to do before bed because like I need a quiet space and it's really hard with my kids. And so makeup, I'm like, you know, it's makeup. How much thought do you need behind doing makeup? I can just listen.
All right, I'm going to toss in our next question, and feel free if you want to answer the first one, you can still do that. What areas of your business do you feel like you want to establish some cues in? And this kind of is just part 2 of the question I already asked. And part 2 of it was, where have you successfully? And everybody kind of already hit on that. So I'm going to throw 3 out there too. So if you don't want to answer 2 out loud, answer that to yourself, work on that one. And everyone has an answer, I promise. And so what areas do you need to establish cues in? All right, give me an example of where you see phasing up rituals can help you establish better habits. So where do you think it would be beneficial to breaking out into phases for either your own business or with how you're doing leadership and training? Sabrina and I have been working on this, and I don't know if we've been calling it phasing necessarily, but doing a better job at establishing, like from a leadership and training standpoint with our people, like starting smaller and really getting them in the habit of this thing before we add on this thing, before we add on this thing, before we add on that thing. So it definitely, the phases look different with everybody, which I think is normal, but we've seen that in kind of our coaching and training of our recent business builders.
Yeah, I feel like learning how to phase people is so important. Definitely anytime that you're trying to, get somebody into the whole habit of just being a Plexus brand ambassador now, like it's a whole life change, so it really does need to be done in small chunks and little, like, and it even has me thinking like, hey, if this is a lot for you, scale it back, right? Like instead of doing, 3 reach outs, just start with 1 for 2 weeks, just do 1 for 2 weeks, and then like 1 follow-up or 1 reach out, 1 follow-up, so just getting creative to problem solve and being intuitive with your people. But I was thinking about the last question about like where I can, okay, I won't have you repeat the question.
Where can you establish a cue to help you be more successful?
Yes. So I've been noticing that the times that I post, I don't have a rhyme or reason. I'm just like, it'll just be like, oh, I need to post. And then that leads me down it just not happening. And so I'm like, well, I should really have this down by now. But we're always having to reestablish habits, right? Like no matter what, like your season changes, your something, whatever, the season's literally changing. And then you have to reestablish habits. It's like a way of life. But I'm thinking about, I really need to, like after I do, because I have like my morning thing, right? I have like my morning ritual worked out, and then I go to the gym, and I always feel the most creative after I work out. And so I need to work. I don't know what it is. Like, I'll be like peak state, which I feel like that's a whole different conversation. Like peak state, get everything you need to do done then. But I think that needs to be my cue. As soon as I work out, I go, I get into my car, I'm sweating, I post, I write, I make it happen. And I do that. But now I just need to consciously make that my habit, like consistently. So that's what I'm thinking for that.
Good answer. Yeah, when you're cooling down, yeah. And some people say like in the shower, they get their best ideas and stuff like that. Yeah. Nice. See, I think this is kind of a tangent, but I really think it's important to reflect and figure out where your kind of quote unquote peak state is. Where do you get the best ideas? When do you feel the most creative? Like start a little journal. What were you doing whenever you're getting good ideas? What time of day was it? What were you doing before that? You might start to see a pattern, and then you can leverage that. You can cue yourself into that. I like that.
I actually had a notepad in my shower. They have shower notepads because I would get, and then I would forget them by the time I got out of the shower because they would just like come. So I was like, I'm done with this, ordered the notepad with the pencil and it, whatever, just works. And I'm telling you, I need to get another one of those because I like lost it in the move when I moved here. It works though.
Some moving guy has it in his shower right now.
It said love notes at the top. It's like you're supposed to like leave love notes for your spouse. I'm like, no, these are love notes to me, my idea.
That's awesome. Okay, here's one other question for you before we wrap it up. What areas of your business could use some automation? So I think another area, another way of phrasing that is what areas of your business need less friction, or have common roadblocks or common distractions. So wherever you see roadblocks and distractions in your business is where you need some automation. So what do you think? So and it's so funny how it varies, because I was not a big fan of dough. It's like, don't tell me what to do.
So I was thinking a little bit along the lines, not the same thought as Natalie, but with my posts, I really like to make posts that are like adding value. And it's like the one thing that I find, so not necessarily Plexus posts, just like actually, showing up as me, like adding value in certain areas that I care about or things that I'm passionate about, stuff like that. And I find that so hard because I feel like when I need to think or write, I can't multitask that with my kids. I can do a coaching call with my kids acting crazy, or I can do all the other things with my kids acting crazy. But it's like, that's the one thing that I've really been thinking about, trying to figure out a like system or a cue or like what is going to work for me, because I want to show up more and add more value to my audience, my friends, all of that. And so it's something I've definitely been thinking about, that area, like more of like adding value and more of me.
That's good. Yeah, reducing friction in that. I think I took the time. I'm still figuring out what to do with the list, but I made the list. I did I'm trying to think of the verbiage that I used for high energy tasks and low energy tasks. And like the low energy tasks were things I could do technically when my kids are present, and wrote them kind of all on one side and tried to associate in my brain, like during these times of the day, I'm allowed to stay in this column. And then during these times of the day, I have to stay in this column, because it's more work to do the high energy tasks where you have to focus and you can't multitask. And I find myself defaulting to the multitask ones, the easier ones kind of thing. So yeah, I was trying to, in essence, automate the decision making about, because you do have often as a mom so many choices of like what you can do with the next hour. They're endless. So if you don't automate in essence when your business hours are, because during business hours you shouldn't be doing laundry, you shouldn't be cooking, you shouldn't be lots of things. But you can justify all day long, like I have some laundry to do, I have some cleaning to do, like I need to get this done. And you're really just avoiding doing some work. So automate that for yourself. Pay someone, yeah. That's the answer to everything.
Hey, laundry
Anybody?
services are cheap. Like, if you like go and drop off, Natalie was telling me that she was doing that. You like go and you drop it off. She was like, dude, like so much. I don't unmute and tell us about that, Nat, but
They do it by weight. They do. I mean, at least here in Suffolk, Virginia, you weigh your laundry. So if I take 40 pounds of laundry, or yeah, I think it's like 40. It's like $1.50 or something per pound. So it's not a lot.
Yeah,
I mean, obviously, if you're washing like heavy sheets or like blankets or whatever, but for doing laundry, that has really helped me a lot in this season, for sure. I haven't done laundry in quite a bit.
that's awesome.
Now, putting it away is a whole other thing, right? It's like you get it all washed, it's all right here. All I need to do is just put it away, but you just got to do it quick.
Quick is the key. I swear my husband is cued when we pull into the garage from a trip. That's his cue to like unpack all suitcases now. And it's my cue to go like sit down. And I'm like, we just drove 12 hours. Can we wait? It's like, no, we have to do it now, or it'll be here 7 days from now. I'm like, yeah, you're right. Those type ones.
Tova, I'm like your husband. When I come home from any trip, I'm like, let's just get it out of the way now. We're not going to want to do it tomorrow morning and the baby's asleep. I mean, baby, he's 4, but still, I'm like, he's asleep. This is the time to do it. So, but to answer the other question, so question number 1, which now I forget what it was, but I know the answer I'm thinking of. So I like, when I have to like mop my first floor or I have to vacuum, that's when I will listen to whatever podcast, or maybe it's some other team call that I wanted to listen to again for a second time or whatever it is. So that's kind of when I do that kind of stuff. Now I forget what the second question was, but for me, posting in stories is hard because what I should do is what I used to do, which is like figure it out over the weekend and kind of have like bullet points of what I want to do, but I haven't been doing that. But I need to get back to that because I think when I was doing that, that was really helpful for me because I may not have had like my posts completely figured out, but I had ideas of what I was going to do. Because the adding value thing always like, I'm like, how can I add a value to people? Like, what do I have that's inspiring? And I'm like, well, maybe somebody wants a new recipe or, whatever. So that kind of a thing. And then there was one other thing I was going to add, and now I forget what it was.
It was where do you want to establish cues?
Yeah, with posting, with stories for me is a big one. Oh, that was the other thing that you guys were talking about too with like phasing. I started to do that too, and actually I had been thinking about it before I went to convention. And then when I was actually talking to Natalie Dolan, she was like kind of explaining that to me, and I was like, "Oh, I was thinking along the same track there." And it's been interesting how since I came back from that trip and I've kind of been doing that with people, like I'll literally just give them one step and I'll say, let me know how that goes. And then, come back here and I'll tell you what the next step is and we'll just do it together. And I'm like, man, if I would have done that like 4 years ago when I started this, like I wonder where I would be now. But it was a learning lesson, I guess. So
We had to learn the same thing. And I don't know why, like, it didn't click with us sooner, but
No.
we're there. It's like we're so excited. We want to teach them everything.
You were like, here's this, and go here, and go there, and go there, and it's like, no, this is where
Here's
we're
your
gonna start.
binder.
Here's a whole timeline.
Yeah.
So
So funny. And Val, like you said, the planning that used to work for you. And I wonder if, like, is it overwhelming for you to do it now because it's a lot of work? Like, I would phase yourself back into it. Like, just plan like 2 of your days. Like, don't plan the whole week. Just start tiny, plan 1 of your days. Because I'll get that way. Like, I want to plan the whole week and I don't have time to do it. So I'm not going to plan it at all.
I
And
think
that's
my
not,
problem is because it's summer and we're like always on the go on the weekends, but I just need to find like, again, like, okay, this 30 minutes on Saturday, I'm going to figure out what I'm going to post for Monday and Tuesday and what my stories are going to be. Like, I just need to be more disciplined again, but that's the problem.
that's where the 2 minutes comes in. So yeah, we were over here in the habit area of our head. And that's what he's saying is kind of our roadblocks. Like, you got to back it up. The habit will come.
Yeah.
All right. I have one question for you guys to kind of do on your own. Disappear. Let me find it real quick. But I would definitely take some time to answer this for yourself and maybe go over it with your upline. I promise I just had it. All right. What easy defaults do you catch yourself doing instead of your desired habit? So I would write out like, trying to think of another way to see it. Where are you defaulting to instead of the habit that you want? So if there's these things you want to do, are you defaulting to busy work? Like the laundry, the cooking. Are you defaulting to scrolling? Are you defaulting to watching a show, running errands, whatever? It's going to be different, but write that down and then get creative with how can I make this harder? How can you make your default, your go-to harder? And so challenge yourself for that because our brains want to do whatever's easiest. And I remember like way back in the 70s, my mom told me about when my dad quit smoking, they had this whole plan where they were allowed to have cigarettes as they quit smoking, but there was a special case they had them in. And there was this like paper insert in the case. And if they were going to smoke, they had to take the paper insert out and like write the date and time and what they were doing ahead of time and how many cigarettes were left. And so it was this arduous process. And the point was like, over half the time, my dad was like, it just wasn't even worth it to fill out that stupid sheet. So I just skipped it. So that's like perfect example. Make it difficult for yourself. All right, guys. Thanks for, I got all the examples. Thanks for participating. And we will see you next week for chapters 15 and 16 and have a great weekend.